I trusted her with my mother's ashes. That single sentence used to bring me comfort. Now, it makes my stomach twist. Her name is Linda. My stepmother. My father married her a year after Mom died from ovarian cancer. It was fast, too fast. But I didn't object. I thought maybe he needed companionship, someone to make the silence at home feel less empty. I told myself I'd be mature about it. At first, Linda played her part well. Polite. Poised. Always just sweet enough to make me feel guilty for not liking her more. But I noticed the little things. She never called my mom by her name. Always your mother or her, like my mom was a shadow she couldn't acknowledge, only endure. She moved all the framed photos into a single hallway. Cleared out the sunroom, Mom's favorite space, and turned it into a home gym. I let it go. I wasn't living there anymore. I had my apartment in Denver, my job as a design engineer, and my life. Then I moved apartments and asked my dad if I could temporarily store a few boxes at their house. One of them was sacred, a sealed oak box containing Mom's ashes. He said yes. Linda smiled and nodded, too. It'll be safe with us, she said. 2 months later, I came back for it. Linda met me at the door with her usual bright lipstick smile and a cardigan buttoned up to her throat. My dad wasn't home. I came to get Mom's ashes, I said, scanning the living room. Her expression didn't change. Oh, that, she said casually. I threw it out. It was just sitting there collecting dust. I blinked. You threw it out? She laughed, short, clipped. Well, I didn't know it meant that much to you. Honestly, it was cluttering up the shelf. It made the whole room feel morbid. My hands were shaking. You threw away my mother? It was ashes, Emma, she said. Dust. Don't be dramatic. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked out, cold air biting into my skin harder than her words had. I called my dad that night. He stammered. Said he didn't know. That he thought it was still in the closet. That he'd talked to Linda. He never called back. I sat awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. My grief was no longer just about losing Mom, it had shifted into something sharper, deeper. Someone had erased her. Like she was trash. That's when it hit me. Linda didn't just want my mom gone. She wanted her forgotten. And she had no idea what I had just found open on her laptop before I left the house. Her private email. Still logged in. Still wide open. And inside? The real fire was just beginning. I hadn't meant to look at her emails. Honestly, I hadn't. But as I walked past the study on my way out of the house that day, numb from what Linda had just told me, I saw her laptop glowing on the desk, lid halfway closed, humming softly. The inbox was right there. No password screen. No lockout. Just her name, in the upper right corner, Linda K. Walker. Still logged into her old work account. I remembered my dad mentioning once that she used to handle admin work at his company before they got married. I hesitated. Then I sat down. I don't know what I was hoping for. Maybe proof she wasn't as cruel as she'd just shown me. Maybe something, anything, to explain what kind of person throws away someone's mother like they're an expired carton of milk. What I found instead made my hands go cold. The first email was titled, Gone at Last. It was sent to someone named Kathy R just 3 weeks ago. Finally got rid of the urn. Couldn't stand it looking at me every morning. Told Emma it was dust, which is exactly what it was. Honestly, what kind of grown woman keeps a box of ashes in her father's house for that long? My chest tightened. There were more. He's still so emotionally fragile. All I have to do is mention her name and he shuts down. It's pathetic. She's been gone for 2 years. I'm his wife now, it's time he acts like it. And then, further down, buried in an exchange with someone named Tony_S23. Thanks again for the cash. He doesn't even notice when I move money around anymore. It's like taking candy from a widow. I stared at the screen. He? My dad? I checked the timestamp. The message was less than 2 months old. I opened the attachments. A PDF titled statement_transfer_08_22. A wire transfer receipt showing a sum of $4,800 withdrawn from my father's joint account. Marked as, consulting fee, TS. I didn't know who Tony was yet, but my stomach already knew. There was one more email I couldn't unsee. It was from Linda to a friend named Maureen, written in the early morning hours, timestamped at 1:42 a.m. She still has no idea I burned it. I didn't throw it in the trash. I used the fire pit out back the night she came over for dinner. The smell was awful. But now, it's done. Finally. No more shrines to the dead woman. Just me, and what's mine. I sat there, paralyzed. There it was. In her own words. She didn't just throw the ashes away. She burned them. Secretly. Intentionally. Vindicatively. And bragged about it. And she was stealing from my father. At first, all I could feel was disbelief. But then came something deeper. Colder. Sharper. Resolve. I didn't forward the emails right then. I knew Linda could come back at any moment. So I did the only thing I could think of. I selected the entire inbox, hit download all, and sent the zip folder to my own private email. Then I stood up. Walked out of the room like nothing had happened. I said goodbye to Linda at the front door. She smiled politely and offered to make tea next time I visit. I told her that sounded great. She didn't notice the tightness in my voice. She didn't notice I was no longer grieving. I was planning. And this time I wouldn't let her control the fire. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my apartment, laptop in front of me, eyes locked on the hundreds of emails I had just downloaded. My mother's photo sat on the shelf behind me, the same one I'd kept since college, framed in silver. She was smiling in that picture, standing near a lake, wind in her hair. She had fought so hard to live. And Linda had reduced her to clutter. The rage that had been simmering all day sharpened into something more precise. I didn't want chaos. I wanted clarity. I wanted my father to see the truth not through a confrontation or a screaming match, but through Linda's own words. And for that, I needed him to be ready to hear it. The next morning, I sent him a text. Hi Dad. Want to grab lunch this week? Just us? He responded a few hours later. Sure. You okay? I will be, I replied. We met on Thursday at a quiet diner he liked, one he used to take Mom to when they were young. He looked older than I remembered. More tired. His eyes didn't hold the same spark they once had. He hugged me when I arrived. It felt stiff, unsure. Like there was something lingering between us neither of us could name yet. We talked about nothing for the first 20 minutes, work, weather, some random family updates. But then, as our plates were being cleared, I said it. Dad, have you looked at your bank statements lately? He blinked, startled. No. Linda handles most of that now. Do you ever review them? He hesitated. I trust her. I nodded slowly, then reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were a few printed emails and bank transfers I had highlighted. I think you should take a look. He frowned but opened the folder. I watched his eyes move across the page. Then stop. Then dart to the next. His face went pale. What is this? He whispered. It's from her old work email, I said quietly. It was still logged in. I didn't hack anything. I just saw what she was doing. He read silently for a while. A transaction for spa visits. Jewelry. The recurring transfers to someone named Tony. Then the messages, ones where she mocked him, belittled his grief, ridiculed my mom. He looked up at me, his voice shaking. She said she threw out the urn. That it didn't mean anything to you. I leaned forward. She didn't throw it away. She burned it. In the fire pit out back. And she bragged about it. His eyes welled with tears, but he blinked them away. I don't understand. She's not who you think she is, Dad. For a long time, he just sat there. Then he said, barely above a whisper, I failed your mother. I let her memory be disrespected under my roof. No, I said gently. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That's not your failure. But what you do next, that matters. He didn't answer. Not then. But he folded the folder, tucked it into his coat, and said, I need time. But I believe you. That was enough for now. But I wasn't done. 2 days later, I asked him to join me for dinner at a quiet restaurant near the Botanical Gardens, the one Mom used to love, the one she wore her favorite blue dress to on her last birthday. I made the reservation under my mother's maiden name. He didn't question it. And when he asked if he could bring Linda, I said, please do. Let her come. Let her wear her best pearls. Because this time, she'd be the one stepping into the fire. Saturday evening arrived like a loaded silence. I got to the restaurant 15 minutes early, wearing a navy blouse that used to be my mother's. I remembered watching her iron it once before a dinner party. She always paired it with silver earrings and a soft, coral lipstick. That night, I did the same. I requested the table by the window, overlooking the garden, Mom's favorite view. The late autumn sun was starting to dip, casting long shadows across the flowers. Fitting, I thought. The day felt like it was holding its breath. At 6:04, I saw them walk in. My father in a dark gray coat, face drawn but composed. And Linda, in a champagne-colored dress, pearls at her throat, clutching her bag like a trophy. She smiled when she saw me, that practiced, magazine-polished smile. Emma, she said brightly, leaning in to air kiss. This place is charming. My father sat down across from me. He didn't smile. Didn't speak. Linda's eyes flicked between us. She adjusted her scarf. So, special occasion? You didn't say what this was about. I looked at her, long and slow. No special occasion, I said. I just thought we should all have a little clarity. My dad cleared his throat. Emma showed me some emails, Linda. Her hand froze mid-reach for the water glass. What emails? She asked, too quickly. Your old work account was still logged in, I said calmly. I forwarded everything to my own inbox. Every message. Every attachment. She scoffed. That's a violation of privacy. My father cut in, voice low. Not when it exposes theft. Linda blinked. I saw the bank transfers, he said. To a man named Tony. Thousands of dollars missing. You said it was for home expenses, but Emma found the truth. Linda tried to recover. It's not what it looks like, Tony is a friend, I was helping him out. Linda, my dad said, voice now firmer. Don't lie again. Her mouth opened, then closed. I reached into my bag, pulled out a slim tablet, and placed it gently on the table. One tap brought up the email. The one she wrote at 1:42 a.m. She still has no idea I burned it. I didn't throw it in the trash. I used the fire pit out back the night she came over for dinner. The smell was awful. But now, it's done. Finally. No more shrines to the dead woman. Just me, and what's mine. I didn't say anything. I let the words hang in the air like smoke. My father's eyes stayed locked on the screen. His jaw was tight, shoulders tense. You destroyed her remains, he said, not looking at Linda. You erased her from our house. And you laughed about it. Linda stared at him, stunned. Her face drained of all warmth. She was your past. I'm your present. Why can't you see that? I do see now, he said coldly. I see exactly who you are. The server came by to refill water, saw the tension, and slowly backed away. Linda stood abruptly. Her chair scraped the floor. You think you're so righteous, Emma, she hissed. You just wanted me out of the way. You've always hated me. No, I said, still seated. I wanted peace. But you made it impossible. You could have honored her memory. You didn't have to like her. But you burned what was sacred. And for that, you'll never step foot in her house again. My father nodded. You can pack your things tonight, he said. I want you gone by morning. Linda stared at him, mouth trembling. Then she left. No final words. No parting shot. Just the faint click of her heels echoing behind her as she stormed out of the restaurant, and out of our lives. We sat there a while longer, not speaking. Finally, my dad looked at me and said, "Thank you." I shook my head. This was never about revenge. It was about truth. He reached across the table and took my hand. For the first time in a long time, he said softly, I feel like I can breathe again. And for the first time since Mom died, so did I. The next few days passed like a quiet storm, no thunder, no lightning, just a slow dismantling of everything Linda had built. She didn't pack that night like Dad asked. She waited 2 days, probably thinking he'd calm down, rethink. But he didn't. He'd changed. I could see it in his voice, in the way he stood taller, clearer. For years, grief had softened him, made him easy to sway. But now, something else had taken its place, conviction. He called a locksmith. Changed every code, every key. Linda finally left on a Thursday afternoon. No tears, no apologies, just a cold silence as she loaded her designer bags into the back of an Uber and vanished from the front step. I watched through the upstairs window, not out of cruelty, but for closure. She didn't even look back. That evening, my father and I sat in the living room together. He poured us both a small glass of wine, his favorite red, one my mom used to tease him about for being too heavy for summer. He raised his glass. To peace, he said. To her, I added. We clinked glasses. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in what felt like years. I let her do things I never should have allowed, he said quietly. I let her talk about your mother like she was some ghost haunting the house. And I believed her when she said the urn didn't matter. He looked down. But it did. And I should have known. She was your wife, Dad, I said gently. You wanted to believe in something again. I betrayed your mother's memory. No, I said firmly. Linda did that. You just didn't see it until now. We sat in silence for a while. Then I pulled out a small velvet pouch from my bag. I had this made, I said. I opened it and took out a delicate silver locket. Inside was a tiny compartment, just big enough for a few grains of ash I had managed to collect from the edge of the fire pit weeks ago. I hadn't told anyone. I wasn't even sure it had survived. But it had. My father's eyes filled with tears. He took the locket like it was the most fragile thing in the world. I thought she was gone forever. She never left, I said. She just waited for us to remember her the right way. He clasped the locket around his neck, tucking it beneath his shirt. And in that moment, I saw something in him shift, not just guilt or regret, but something quieter, steadier. Like the ground beneath him had finally settled after years of grief and confusion. The next weekend, he joined me for a quiet ceremony. We went to the cemetery where Mom's family had a plot, and we placed a small memorial stone beside her parents. No grand speeches, no crowd, just the two of us and a bouquet of her favorite lilies. On the stone, it simply read, Elizabeth Walker, loved beyond words. Missed beyond measure. He ran his fingers across the inscription and whispered, I'm sorry, Liz. I see you now. and for the first time in 2 years, I think she hurt him. And I think he finally hurt her, too. A month later, the house felt different. Not quieter, just lighter. Linda's things were gone. Her perfumes, her cold colors, the framed motivational quotes she'd hung in the kitchen, replaced with the soft greens and earthy tones my mother once loved. Dad started opening the blinds more. Cooking again. He even brought out the old record player from the attic and played the jazz albums they used to dance to in the living room. One afternoon, I found him sitting there with a stack of photo albums, his fingers tracing each page like they were maps to a life he'd once folded away. He looked up at me. "I forgot how much she laughed," he said. "Linda always said your mother was reserved. Distant." "She wasn't," I replied. "She just didn't have to be loud to be present." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I believed her lies for too long." "You're not the only one," I said. "She fooled a lot of people. But you saw through her in the end. That's what matters." He closed the album gently. "You saw through her first." "It wasn't bravery," I said. "It was grief. And a gut feeling that wouldn't go away." "Whatever it was," he said, "it saved me." The following week, we met with his lawyer. My dad transferred full control of his financial accounts to an independent advisor. He filed to revise his will. And he froze every shared asset he still had with Linda, who was now under internal investigation at her former company thanks to the documents I anonymously forwarded. Misuse of corporate funds. Undisclosed income. Fraud. Apparently, Tony, the consultant, had worked with her before. This wasn't her first scheme. Just her most personal. I didn't relish any of it. But I didn't feel guilty either. Some truths demand consequences. Later that month, I returned to my own life. My work. My apartment. My quiet. I had done what I needed to do. I had protected my mother's memory. Reconnected with my father. Burned away what needed to be burned, not in ashes, but in lies exposed to daylight. One Sunday evening, I received a letter in the mail. It had no return address. Inside was a single note, handwritten. "You think you're better than me. But you're just like her. Cold. Controlling. You'll end up alone, too." There was no signature. But I didn't need one. I folded the letter once, slid it into an envelope, and tucked it in the back of my drawer. Not as a threat. But as proof. That sometimes, the most vicious people will always see strength as cruelty, and truth as betrayal. Let them. Because people like Linda only know how to manipulate when no one is watching. And now? She knows I'm watching. Always. Winter came early to Denver that year. The first snow fell in mid-November, blanketing the city in quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, but clean. Like something had been cleared out to make room for something else. Peace, maybe. Or something close to it. My dad started calling more often. Not out of obligation or awkwardness, but just to talk. We'd share a few stories over dinner, laugh about old family quirks, and sometimes, without saying it, we'd talk about Mom. Not in grief. But in memory. One evening, while visiting, I found him sitting on the back porch wrapped in a sweater, the locket around his neck glowing slightly in the porch light. "She's everywhere," he said. I nodded. Always was. There was nothing bitter left between us. Only time. And the soft repair of something broken. He'd gone back to volunteering at the local library, a thing he stopped doing when Linda moved in. And for the first time in years, he bought tickets to a community play, alone. "I want to learn how to be by myself without feeling lonely," he said. I smiled. That's the best kind of strength. As for me, I took the framed photo of Mom and moved it to my nightstand. Not to grieve her. But to see her first thing every morning. A few weeks later, I received a small package from a woman named Maureen. The name rang a bell. When I opened the box, there was a simple note. I saw the fallout. I never knew she'd go that far. You deserved to know. Inside was a flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop. It was filled with years' worth of Linda's private correspondence, copies, audio notes, even phone recordings Maureen had quietly saved when she started to grow suspicious. Some of it I'd already seen. Some of it was worse. Mocking my dad. Calling my mother deadweight legacy. Describing herself as a chess master in a game against a man too grief-stricken to notice the board was burning. I didn't need more evidence. But I kept it. Documented it. Sealed it away. Because some things deserve to be remembered. Not for revenge. But for prevention. So I never forget what happens when you let someone like her take root in a place meant to honor the past. And so I'll never let it happen again. Not to me. Not to my father. And not to the memory of the woman who raised me to speak softly, walk steadily, and burn only when absolutely necessary. Some people destroy quietly. Not with fists, but with whispers. With slow erasure. With ashes scattered in silence. But even in fire, truth leaves a trace. And sometimes, the smallest act, one email, one photo, one voice that refuses to stay quiet, can shift the weight of everything. Protect what matters. Mourn what's lost. And when someone tries to rewrite history in their favor, be the one who writes it back. What would you have done if someone tried to erase your mother like that? Have you ever discovered a dark truth that changed how you see someone forever? Let me know where you're watching from. If you support Emma's quiet revenge, vote number 1. If you'd have confronted Linda even harder, vote number 8. Subscribe to EN True Tales for more stories like this, where truth speaks louder than revenge.